Right.
That's just not true.
That's being enforced now. That's never been enforced. This is like the first time they're having these like crazy mass hearings in Texas. They're like inundating these border courts with illegal border crossing cases, which was not prosecuted before the current administration. I like listen to a podcast.
Yeah, I just heard this today too.
Yeah.
I was watching Telemundo.
Question from someone who is way less well versed in this. So obviously Trump is like pretty stupid and like latches onto the wall idea, but do you think that could be some of
I've never heard him talk about the wall before.
For actually some of the like evil smart people who are behind him, would that be some sort of motivation there because they know that there is a legal practice that they're able to block by actually physically blocking like all of these, non-ports of entry?
I think it's super organized. I mean, this is just my opinion, but it's too good of a bar against a valid legal claim to keep people who have rights under U.S. law out of the U.S. where they can use the courts to enforce them. That seems a little too convenient to be an accident. And plus, the new policy now is, okay, well, we'll let asylum seekers in. They can have their credible fear interview, which is like the first step in the process. Okay, but while we adjudicate your claim, you have to wait in Mexico.
So you don't have access to your attorney that's like adjudicating your asylum claim.
If you're lucky enough to have one. Because asylum seekers do not have a right to an attorney. And plus, Tijuana it makes the news for not being the safest place in the world. And
especially those that are trying to get here with families.
Yeah.
And small children.
Yeah. So the perversion should be pretty obvious, but making vulnerable people wait in a place where legally their case is deeply affected by being able to prove that they can live in a safe third country. So if like their cases depend on them living in a place that's dangerous.
Right.
So it's pretty fucked.
Will you think about the fact that these people come in, say, hey, I am afraid to go back to where I'm from for these reasons. And, they accept, okay, you do have a credible fear. We're going to move forward with your asylum claim. And then they're like, okay, well, then now go back to where you came from for a little while. To where you're afraid, to like where, you have a fear of persecution.
Right. Well, it's a little bit different for people who express a fear, or it's supposed to be a little bit different for people who express a fear of returning to Mexico. And they're supposed to not do this for Mexican nationals. However,
I don't believe that they would.
Yeah. I mean, people's rights get trampled on all the time. The laws are broken all the time. And it's very difficult to enforce them.
And so did you work a lot or specifically with caravans that were coming over from Central America?
Not specifically, but in large part, yeah. A lot of the refugees in Tijuana right now are Central American. A lot of people from Cameroon. A lot of people from Eastern Europe. Actually met a family that was like from a similar part of the world that my family's from, which was kind of crazy. Where else? All over the world at any given morning, like where if you're like crossing the border, you'll hear dozens of languages, every color, every creed. It's kind of beautiful in a desperate way because people have rights that are being trampled on. So I don't want to romanticize it, but it's pretty wild to see such a broad array of people who are just trying to live a better life, like just trying to get in, not even guaranteed a better life, just have a chance. And so
say again the name of the organization you were working with. Give them a little plug.
Otro Lado. And so if anything that I'm saying is speaking to you, if you go on to otrolado.org, there is a place where you can donate. And the project that I worked on is the Border Rights Project. So if this moves you at all,
how do you spell it?
Al Otro Lado. ALOTROLADO.org. Al Otro Lado.
Awesome. And what kind of training, do you receive any kind of training from this organization when you were down there?
It was like a 1-day orientation. and then just birth by fire. And and the project is relatively young, so it was, like it's changing and evolving and getting better and better and better. So I'm green. I was green.
What stage of the process are you then stepping in at? So are you working with people before they've, come through, after they've come through and they're waiting?
Both. But the majority of folks that I've met are in that line, waiting to cross, waiting to move forward.
Okay. So what's the organization, what's the project doing for them?
Like day to day.
Yeah.
So we do Know Your Rights presentations. We do individual interviews following that Know Your Rights presentation so that people have a chance to actually think through. Like, it's very difficult to talk about your life even if you just ask, like, who are you and what makes you you? I mean, it's easy to start your story at 5,000 years ago, before there were borders. My great it's, your story can run away from you, and there's a really limited window of what is legally relevant to an asylum case. And the challenge is framing a traumatic, dangerous to tell every time story in a way that is clear and that can be understood by someone who's not going to ask you like expository questions. The bureaucrat who's deciding whether or not you have a case for asylum is not gonna probe deeper to find out, well, are these details part of your prima facie case of asylum? So people need to be prepared. And for the large part, telling your story is really difficult when you've gone through so much.
Do you have any methods for how you self-care after you've dealt with some of these really heavy things like secondary trauma? We've just been talking a lot about secondary trauma. Yeah. I was saying earlier that I lead a group at the U called the Asylum Law Project. And we actually had a group go down to volunteer with Otro Lado as well. And when they came back, they were talking about how we need to beef up our secondary trauma information and talk about self-care and how we can deal with being the, bearers of these people's.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And that's something that one of the things that I just love about the crew of people who are organizing in Tijuana with AOL is there's a presence and an intention to work on this there. Like everyone is already working on this because it's so important. And walking into this space, I have so much respect and solidarity and love for every person that spends their time working on this, that even though every day is objectively a shitty day because you're doing something that no one should have to do, like this work shouldn't have to exist, and just knowing that there is a team of people who are spending their time doing the same thing is very helpful. And like spending time with those folks has been a godsend. But I also really, while I'm in Tijuana, I the first time I went, I didn't really get a chance to see the city in a way that was loving. I just was really upset at how Tijuana was treating migrants. Like, I just felt a lot of anger. And this last time I was there for a little over 2 weeks, and I spent a lot more time doing like art and music, and like met some really cool artists and musicians, and saw a side of Tijuana that was really, really beautiful. There are so many young, cool, queer artists in Tijuana from all over the world and all over Mexico. And it's like, that was really cool to take some of the anger that I feel that drives this work and transform it into love. That was pretty cool.
And on a lighter note, how was the travel there and back for your adventure in Tijuana?
It got fucked up. It got really fucked up. On my way back, I was supposed to fly back like 9 days or something like that after I arrived, and my phone and wallet got stolen was like right as I was about to cross. And I was relying on Uber super hard. Didn't have any cash, relying on my card. So phone, wallet gets stolen. I miss my flight. I'm flying like some discount airline that is headquartered in Minneapolis. I won't name names, but like, whoa. Starts with sun, ends with country.
Could be anybody.
They only fly from San Diego to the Twin Cities Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I miss my flight on Monday. I don't have money, don't have a phone. I think, okay, well, this is fine. I'll just do my homework and I'll go volunteer some more. And then I realized, like, okay, Sarah, you single female of not a huge stature, like, you probably can't be walking around Tijuana without a phone or wallet. So you're pretty much stuck with whoever will have you. And yeah, so it was just, it was pretty stressful. And I was lucky enough to have like a really supportive group of friends who kind of took me in, and their apartment happened to be on the beach, so it was kind of a forced vacation. And that ended up being, to circle back to self-care, I ended up really self-caring. Yeah, but the travel was a nightmare. That was not fun.
And so,
and then you missed a week of class.
Yeah, just a casual week of law school. No biggie.
I was going to say, your passport hasn't been revoked yet?
Oh, no, it hasn't. I am not super visible. There were a few times that I like got a little worried about just like having my picture taken and having just like, I have a distinctive look. I'm recognizable. I was saying before we started recording that like, if someone's looking for me in Tijuana, they'll be like, oh, Sara with the red hair. Like, and there's just not that many people who look like me. And yeah, I definitely felt conspicuous.
Do you want to talk about why I asked you that question?
Yeah. Okay, so CBP is compiling a list of organizers, lawyers, journalists, and activists who are advocating for the rights of migrants in Tijuana.
And what is CBP?
Custom and Border Patrol, which is an arm of the Department of Homeland Security that basically enforces the law. They're like ICE at the border, if that makes sense. And CBP has been compiling a list, including some of the folks that I have been lucky enough to work with, who basically have made themselves visible and persistent in advocating for the rights of migrants. So
haven't they actually like revoked the passports of two or three of people from Otro Lado?
They have.
Yeah.
And beyond that, it's a list of about 65 people. And the community of organizations in Tijuana is pretty tight. It's actually really cool to see how I have a story I'm going to tell you. It's pretty cool to see how a bunch of different organizations, from like legal organizations to doctors to art organizations to like Food Not Bombs to, I mean, so many different organizations are really close knit. So it's a lot bigger than just the people I know personally. It's like 60 some really diligent activists whose ability to cross has been suspended. Super illegal. Call your congressperson.
Yeah.
Not creepy, super chill,
Yeah.
passport revocation.
No.
The day that I was crossing back, like for real crossing back, was the day that there was like a big like Mexico versus Chile soccer game in San Diego. So the line was outrageous and I was just freaking out because I didn't want to have any drama, and it was like the slowest, most painful wait to cross, but it was uneventful. So
Cool. So right now we are going to play a little game with you called Cold Call, our namesake. We're going to cold call you on judicial trivia questions. In front of you...
Oh, the cup of shame, my favorite part of the episode.
Yeah, is the cup of shame that has a bunch of great questions in
There's
there
a
for
banana Laffy Taffy in here.
Oh
Is there?
I'm eating this.
Nice.
Oh, not just a rapper. There's just rappers all around.